A black couple welcomes their newborn baby into the world, only to be met with gasps of shock. Their child has white skin. Whispers spread, doubts creep in, and soon their once loving community turns against them. But when a DNA test finally reveals the truth, the entire world is left speechless. How did this happen? What secrets lay buried in the past? And will this family survive the storm of accusations? Stay tuned as we unravel the mystery that no one saw coming. Tasha and Marcus Johnson had waited for this moment their entire lives. The hospital room was filled with warmth, the cries of their newborn baby echoing through the air. Exhausted but glowing, Tasha reached out as the nurse gently placed the baby in her arms. But as soon as Tasha looked down at her child, her breath caught in her throat. The baby had soft, porcelain-white skin. Marcus, standing beside her, felt the blood drain from his face. Is everything okay?" His voice was shaky, unsure. The nurse, just as taken aback, forced a smile. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. You have a beautiful, healthy baby boy." But the tension in the room was undeniable. The doctors exchanged glances, the silence growing heavier. Tasha's mind raced as she looked at Marcus, his dark brown eyes wide with confusion. They were both black. How was this possible? Tasha clutched the baby closer, her heart pounding. "Marcus, he's ours, right?" A shadow passed over Marcus's face, a mixture of shock and something else, something neither dared to voice. The whispers started almost immediately. The nurses murmured to each other as they left the room, and soon the hospital's staff couldn't help but peek in, curious about the miracle child born to black parents. Then the questions began. "Are you sure there wasn't a mix-up?" the doctor asked hesitantly. Marcus stiffened. "What are you saying?" The doctor cleared his throat. This is highly unusual. Genetic anomalies do happen, but this is extremely rare." Tasha clutched her baby tighter, fear creeping in. She knew what people would think. Doubts, accusations, judgment, and then came the most painful question of all, one that no one dared to say out loud, but hung in the air like a storm cloud. Was the baby Marcus's? Marcus turned away, his jaw clenched. Tasha saw the hurt in his eyes, and it shattered her. The man who had loved and trusted her now doubted in his heart. Tasha's voice was barely above a whisper. "Marcus, I swear, I need air," he cut her off, leaving the room. As the door shut behind him, Tasha looked down at her son, tears brimming. She didn't know how or why this had happened, but one thing was sure. Her family would never be the same again, and the world was about to find out. Tasha sat in the hospital bed, cradling her newborn son, but the tension in the room overshadowed the warmth of the moment. The whispers had spread beyond the hospital staff. Friends, family, and even strangers were already speculating. The first call came from Tasha's mother, Linda. "Baby, is everything all right? Marcus just called me and he sounded off." Tasha hesitated, knowing how her mother would react. "Mama, he's white." Silence. Then, in a low, serious voice, Linda asked, "What do you mean, white?" Tasha inhaled sharply, holding back tears. "I mean pale skin, blue eyes, blonde hair." The silence was suffocating. Then Linda exhaled. "Tasha, are you sure?" Tasha's voice broke. "Mama, don't! You know me!" But it was too late. The seed of doubt had already been planted. Meanwhile, Marcus stood outside the hospital, his mind spinning. He wanted to believe Tasha. He needed to believe her. But the looks people had given him, the murmurs from the nurses, and now even his thoughts were betraying him. His phone buzzed. His best friend, Damien. "Yo, bro, what's going on?" "I just saw a post on Facebook about a black couple having a white baby. Someone's saying it's you and Tasha." Marcus felt his stomach drop. What the hell? He quickly pulled up Facebook. A blurry hospital picture had been taken. Someone must have snapped it through the doorway. The caption read, "When the math ain't matching." Hundreds of comments were already pouring in. "Ain't no way that's his kid. It looks like Tasha has some explaining to do. Y'all ever heard of recessive genes? Stop jumping to conclusions. He needs a DNA test ASAP." Marcus clenched his jaw. It wasn't just a private matter anymore. It had gone viral. Inside, Tasha stared at the hospital room door, waiting for Marcus to return. Instead, a nurse entered, her expression uncertain. "Mrs. Johnson, there's a reporter outside asking questions about your baby. Apparently the story has already reached the news." Tasha's heart pounded. "What? How?" The nurse hesitated. "Social media. And, well, cases like this tend to get a lot of attention." Tasha felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. She looked at her innocent baby boy, unaware of the chaos surrounding his birth. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about what the world believed. And soon the only way to silence the rumors would be to take a DNA test. But was Marcus ready for the truth? Marcus paced the hospital waiting room, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He could hear the whispers around him. He saw the nurses glance at him with curiosity, and even caught a couple of security guards exchanging knowing looks. Tasha had always been faithful. He knew that. He believed that. But now the whole world was watching, waiting for him to demand a DNA test. And the truth was, he needed to know too. Tasha sat on the hospital bed, clutching their newborn son to her chest. When Marcus walked in, she could see the conflict in his eyes. He was trying to stay calm, but she could feel the tension. "You want a DNA test, don't you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked down, ashamed. "Tasha, it's not that I don't trust you, but look around. People are already making assumptions. The internet is going crazy. And I just need to be sure." Tasha swallowed the lump in her throat. She had done nothing wrong, but the doubt in Marcus's voice cut deep. She nodded slowly. "Fine. Let's do the test." A few hours later, a doctor entered the room with a solemn expression. "We'll take a swab from both parents and the baby. Results should be ready in a couple of days." Tasha nodded as the nurse approached with the swabs. Although the process took only a few moments, the weight of what it meant was unbearable. As Marcus held his son again, he studied the baby's soft, pale skin and piercing blue eyes. Was there a scientific explanation, or was this proof of the worst betrayal he could imagine? The wait for the truth. The following 48 hours were torture. Marcus avoided social media, but it didn't stop the world from talking. The story had spread like wildfire. Every online forum, every news station, and every local talk show debated what had happened. Is it a rare genetic phenomenon? Did Tasha cheat? What will the DNA test reveal? Marcus avoided calls from friends, co-workers, and even his own family. He couldn't handle the questions. Tasha, on the other hand, was overwhelmed. Everywhere she turned, people had opinions about her son, relationship, and even her character. It wasn't very comfortable. Neither had slept by the time they arrived at the hospital for the results. As they sat in the doctor's office, hands clenched together, the doctor entered with an envelope. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I have your results," he said, his voice unreadable. Marcus held his breath. Tasha squeezed her eyes shut. And then, the doctor read the truth aloud. What he said would shock the world. The room felt like it had shrunk. The walls closed in, and Marcus could only hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Tasha's grip on his hand was too tight, but he didn't pull away. The doctor sighed, carefully unfolding the paper in his hands. He glanced up at them, his expression unreadable. "The test results are in," he said slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. "Marcus, you are the baby's biological father." Silence. The air in the room shifted. Marcus blinked as if trying to process the words. He looked at the baby, his baby. his son. But how? Marcus finally managed to ask. How is this possible? The doctor adjusted his glasses. Your son's features may seem unexpected, but there is a scientific explanation. Have you ever heard of genetic recombination? Sometimes recessive genes that haven't been expressed for generations can suddenly appear in a child. It's rare, but it happens. Tasha let out a breath she didn't even realize she was holding. So, there's no mistake, she whispered. The doctor shook his head. No mistake. Both you and Tasha share distant European ancestry. Somewhere in your family's history, there were genes for fair skin and blue eyes. It's just, genetics at work. Marcus looked down at his son, a wave of emotions crashing over him. Relief, guilt, and love. He had doubted Tasha. He had doubted his son. Tasha turned to him, her eyes glassy. Marcus, you doubted me. Her words cut deep. He had trusted her with everything until the world planted a seed of doubt in his mind. I know, Marcus admitted, his voice thick. I was wrong. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to meet her gaze. I let people get in my head. I let fear win. And I'm so sorry, Tasha. Tasha studied him for a long moment before nodding. She wasn't ready to forgive him, but at least now the truth was out. But outside the hospital, the world had already made its judgments. Marcus picked up his phone, scrolling through the headlines. Black man demands DNA test after white baby is born. Shocking results. Interracial couple faces unexpected genetic twist. Social media explodes over viral DNA test story. Marcus sighed. The internet wasn't going to let this go, and that's when the real battle began. Marcus had barely exited the doctor's office when his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News of their DNA results had spread like wildfire. Someone at the hospital must have leaked the story, and now the internet was having a field day. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were filled with heated debates. No way! This has to be a mistake. How can two black parents have a white baby? Y'all ever heard of recessive genes? This happens more than you think. That man owes his wife an apology for even asking for a test. Marcus scrolled that through the comments, his stomach twisting. Some people supported them, but others were cruel. That baby ain't his. She played him. I'd still get another test, bro. No way. This is what happens when you mix races. Genes get confused. He clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to respond. How could people be so ignorant? They didn't know his family. They didn't know his love for Tasha, and yet they acted like they had the right to judge them. Tasha sat on the couch, holding their son close. She looked exhausted, drained from the emotional roller coaster of the past few days. This isn't fair, she whispered. We just wanted to go home and love our baby. But now, the whole world thinks they have a say in our lives. Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. I know, and no matter what we say, people will believe what they want. The doorbell rang. Marcus froze. He wasn't expecting anyone. Tasha gave him a worried look. Do you think... He didn't want to say it, but knew what she meant. The internet had turned them into a spectacle, and it was only a matter of time before someone took it too far. Marcus walked cautiously to the door and peeked through the peephole. His heart sank. Reporters, cameras, microphones, they were surrounded. Mr. Carter, do you have a statement about your son? Tasha, how do you feel about your husband doubting you? Do you regret taking the DNA test? Marcus slammed the door shut, his hands shaking. They're outside, he said quietly. They're not going to leave us alone. Tasha held their son tighter. What do we do? Marcus exhaled slowly, his mind racing. We fight back, he said. We tell our story, on our terms. But they didn't realize that the real battle had just begun. Marcus and Tasha woke up the following day to find their story dominating the news. Every central channel had picked it up. Some called it a medical marvel. Others questioned the validity of the DNA test. But the worst were the ones twisting their story to fuel their racist agendas. Marcus paced the living room, his fists clenched. "They're making a spectacle out of our son." Tasha sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Some people are even saying we faked the whole thing for attention." Her voice was shaky. "Marcus, I can't do this. I didn't ask for any of this." He sat down beside her, placing a hand over hers. "We didn't ask for it, but we're in it. And if we don't take control of our own story, they'll keep spinning it however they want." Tasha looked down at their son, peacefully sleeping in her arms. "So what do we do?" Marcus took a deep breath. "We go public, but on our terms." The interview that changed everything that afternoon. Marcus reached out to a trusted Black journalist who would tell their story with truth, not sensationalism. By evening, they were seated in front of cameras, their son cradled in Tasha's arms. The interviewer began, "Marcus, Tasha, thank you for being here. First, let's clear the air. Are you 100% sure this is your biological son?" Marcus nodded firmly. "Yes, the DNA test confirmed it. He is our son. There was never another possibility." Tasha wiped away a tear. "It hurts that people doubted me, that my husband, even for a second, had to question me. But I understand why. Because this world has conditioned us to believe that a Black couple can't have a child who looks different." The interviewer leaned in. "What do you want people to take away from your story?" Marcus exhaled. "That race isn't as simple as people think. Genetics are complex, and more than anything, that love defines a family, not skin color." Tasha squeezed his hand. "And we want people to stop spreading hate, stop making assumptions. This is our child, and we love him no matter what." The public reacts. The interview aired that night. Within hours, their words went viral. Some people still spewed hate, but something incredible happened. Others began speaking up. "I'm mixed, and my sister came out looking completely white while I'm brown. Genetics are wild." This story made me rethink my own biases. I was quick to judge, and I was wrong. Love is what makes a family. Not DNA, not skin color, just love. Marcus finally felt at peace as he held his son close that night. The storm wasn't over, but they had done what mattered. They had told their truth, and that truth had changed lives. The following days were a whirlwind. Their interview continued to circulate, sparking conversations across the country. People of all races and backgrounds debated, discussed, and, most importantly, listened. But for Marcus and Tasha, life slowly settled back into their reality. A community transformed. One afternoon, Marcus stepped into his usual barbershop. The moment he walked in, the conversation halted. He knew the men had been discussing him. The barber, an older Black man named Reggie, nodded at him. "Man, you got the whole world talking." Marcus sighed, sitting down. "That wasn't the plan." Reggie chuckled. "Sometimes the truth has its own plan." He turned to the others in the shop. "Y'all know, back in the day, we were told that one drop of Black blood made you Black. But this brother's baby is showing us that genes don't play by no rules." One of the younger men, who had been skeptical before, spoke up. "I ain't gonna lie. I thought something wasn't right, but I watched y'all's interview. I respect what you said. That kid is yours, no matter what." Marcus smiled. That was all he had ever wanted, for people to understand. Healing and forgiveness. Meanwhile, Tasha had her battle to face, her mother. After the DNA results, her mother went silent, too ashamed to admit she had been wrong. One evening, Tasha made the first move, calling her. "Mom, we need to talk." A long silence followed, then a deep breath. "Tasha, Her voice broke. "I was so wrong." Tasha closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Mom, you made me doubt myself. You made Marcus doubt me." "I know," her mother whispered, "and I hate myself for it. I was blinded by my own ignorance. I let the world's expectations cloud my faith in my own daughter." Tasha swallowed hard. "Then let's move forward. Together." Her mother hesitated and asked, "Can I see my grandson?" Tasha smiled through her tears. "Yes, Mom. Yes, you can." Their home was filled with laughter as family and friends gathered that weekend. Lillian, now a few months old, was passed from loving arms to loving arms. Marcus watched as his son was cradled by his grandmother, Reggie from the barber shop, and neighbors who once whispered behind their backs. The people who had questioned them had now become their most incredible supporters. As the sun set, Tasha leaned into Marcus. "We did it." He kissed her forehead. "No, babe. Love did it." And with that, their family, unique, unexpected, and stronger than ever, stood together, unbreakable. Enjoyed this story? Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Let's spread the message of hope and unity together. Thanks, and take care.